evening, everyone. We were having some technical difficulties, so this will not be live. This is just going to be uploaded by myself without any comment from you guys as we're going along. But we do have the comment section down below, or you can just go ahead and message me if you have any questions. My feline assistant was on PTO today, so she sent in a replacement, but it's just a plushie. Anyway, let's get on with the lesson. We were talking about percentages in the previous lesson. Now we're going to talk about percent of change. This is where now you can use percentages more for real life. And a great way that you might actually get percent fever is when you're tracking your progress. This is very big if like you're seeing like your bank account increase in money, or if you're seeing like how much progress you've made in cleaning out, like maybe decluttering or cleaning out a garage. Like, hey, I've got like 50% of the garage cleaned out. I made a 2% increase in my annual earnings, or I am now at 2% of my previous cardiovascular endurance. All of these things we can just go ahead and measure them with percentages, and it's very exciting. For some reason, whenever we see the percent symbol, the way that marketing has trained our brain to think is percentage is a very like high dopamine rush. So here we have progress, no matter how small, is still progress. So even though there's a 1% change, it still is a change. And hopefully we'll see some positive changes in these examples. So I want to give a scenario, and we're going to be talking about percentages, but there's different ways that you can say it. Like math is its own language, but you can say, just like in English, we can say potato, pecan. Same thing with math. There's different ways of saying the same thing. So let's say Mary recently started freelancing. Freelancing is just another way of saying that she started her own business, but instead of like making your own equivalent of a Walmart, you're probably maybe cutting people's yards or helping them file their taxes if you're like a licensed accountant. Another hot buzzword is a side hustle. Except some people can live off of freelancing. So that English vocabulary lesson aside, let's get back with the math. Mary recently started freelancing and earned $1,000 last month. Okay, $1,000 is in different places in the United States. Your cost of living, or like what's an acceptable minimum wage, might differ. But for $1,000 for starting off for the first month ever and freelancing, it's not too bad. Then this month, so since we were talking about last month, it was the month previously and now the current month. This month, she made $2,000. actual exam, another question I could have is not just, I see my assistant send in someone else. Come here. Come here. Hop, 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 hop. Hop, hop. I don't know if you can see them. Oh my goodness. Come here, baby boy. Come on. Up, 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 up. Up, 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 up. Come here. Oh no. Come here. So these might be some of the noises you might hear. This is one of the challenges and beauties of working from home. You might have beautiful pets, or in some people's cases, children joining you with lessons. So they have disrupted a bit of the workflow. Okay. Hold on. If any of you might ask, like, why didn't you have the door closed? I did. I believe maybe they've been learning how to open a door. So the probability of them interrupting has increased. Alright, back on topic. Mara recently started freelancing and earned $1,000 last month, so the first month. Let me use a different color. Watching a video can sometimes be boring. Let's not make everything the same monotonous color. Got these. First month. She made $1,000. Second month she made $2,000. Some of you might be saying, well, $2,000 a month, I'd quit my job and like start doing whatever she's doing. This is a really great increase. From 1 month to the next, she was able to double her income. Even if this isn't like what her goal is, whatever it is in her industry, it does. We're kind of like cutting Mary some slack because this is still a brand new business. At some point, she does need to start rolling in the cash, but sometimes it's like when you're going to work out at the gym. You're not going to compare yourself to the bodybuilder, the guy, the person who takes like a bunch of like pre-workout and like has like basically eats older food and powder and eats like 8 different meals a day and has everything meal prepped and like does triathlons and works out 3 times a day. And you're barely starting out. Do not compare yourself to them. That can be a goal, but when you're like first starting out, like, hey, like I was able to do 10 push-ups and now I'm able to do 20 push-ups, and then you can start doing like 50 push-ups. Then you're able to see the progress and the change. Like, hey, I'm getting a little better and a little better, instead of like you being down here comparing yourself to like this bodybuilder over here. You're always gonna, in comparison, you're gonna be like a 0% in comparison to this person. But here, you're like, I'm like, hey, I've doubled, or there's a 200% difference. I'll go ahead and explain this. But going back to Mary's scenario. So we rewrote her information. First month, $1,000. Second month, $2,000. This is what the whole problem is saying. We can go ahead and erase that. Since what we have in red and blue is the same as what we had in black. So the question asked, how could she describe the increase in her earnings? It's not asking you to necessarily do some math. Here, it's asking you, what are some of the different ways you can say this? And these are 3 options. So, we know it doubled because this times 2, 1,000 times 2 is 2,000. So it doubled, that's one way we could say it. Another way we can say it is it increased by 100% because right here we have the 1,000 and we add it to another 100% of itself. And so like if we increased, so another way we can say it is increased by 100%. So it just means 100% plus 100%. So 100% of this value is all of it. It's like if I say I want to eat 100% of the snack. That means I want to eat all of the snack. Same here. So increased by 100%. So this was her $1,000. I add another $1,000. So now I have $2,000. Another way I can say this is her earnings are now 200% of the previous months. Whoa, I see 100%, I see 200%. Well, what's going on here, miss? By saying increase by 100%, that means I'm adding, right? 100% plus 100%. Take those together. I don't want to say this number plus this other number. I just want to say what is the sum? Well, 100% plus 100%. 200%. I can now say, starting from scratch, now the earnings are 200% of the previous month's earnings. So let me write it out in plain English. So if the question was asking, how would you describe the increase in our earnings, we kind of did any necessary little alterations here. We didn't really solve for anything, but it all goes down to grammatical structure. This is very important if you're working in decision making, because in a lot of like reports, and I'm not necessarily talking about like 40-page reports, because the likelihood of someone reading that is very low, but they even use it on memos and talking about efficiency in meetings, or deciding shifts depending on how many people go into a store. And that's when they want to decide, okay, we need to write this in simple English. So let's go ahead and use black again so it can stand out. So 3 ways we can say this is, and any one of those ways could be an option in a multiple choice. Say, Mary's earnings doubled from last month to this month. Another way you could say it, I'm just gonna write this like tiny little board. Oh goodness. Like I'll have to erase that. Okay. 1. 2. Another way we could say this is this month so the month that she made the $2,000, her earnings increased by 100%. Okay. Now I'm going to go into more of how the grammar and the verbiage goes here. This month her earnings increased by 100%. Since we're talking about months and we're talking about an increase, time as we experience it, I'm not going to be going into like alternative realities and like time loops or anything. Time necessarily only moves forward, so like January, February, March, April, as we go on. So we could say that's just for practical purposes. The second month that she did her business was this month. So we could say this month her earnings increased by 100%. What is our relative? We can't necessarily talk about March or April because that hasn't happened yet. We're going to be talking about the past here. So we're going to be talking, it's assumed we're talking about January's earnings unless specified otherwise. And the third way we could possibly say this, we're following the 1, 1, 2, 2, and this will be the third one. This month's earnings are 200% of last month's earnings. Now the verbiage in this sentence is basically explained everything when I talk about time being linear, moving in only one direction. Where like with this one you kind of have to have like some background knowledge or apply that knowledge with this problem. With this statement compared to this one. This one already says this month, assuming February, are 200% of last month, which would be January. So here it kind of spells it out. So for any of you who are English second language learners or third or fourth, for people who come from communities who are polyglots, it means like multiple languages, but English is not like your dominant or first language. This one's much more friendly for non-native English speakers. It also requires less brain power. Okay, so if there's no questions on this, and I know we're not doing this live, but I kind of feel that I should give you a pause, that way you can go ahead and give a comment in the section below. Okay, so from her freelancing gig, you could say she doubled from last month, her earnings increased by 100%, or her earnings are 200% of the previous month. Pretty good, not bad. Even if the numbers were like $50 and $100, $100 might not seem like much to some people, but it would still stand true. The earnings would still be a 200%. That's the beauty of percentages. You're not comparing yourself to like the outside world, you're comparing yourself from within. However, you do want to have perspective on the outside world. Let's say, for me, I'm very thin and narrow. I'm also very tall. I necessarily am not going to be the world's next bodybuilder lifting 1,000 pounds. However, statistically, I might make a better runner, a better cyclist. There's other sports I could try out. Even though I might have a 200% increase in my abilities if I start like weight training, compared to like some other people, I might not be doing enough progress. So you do have to look at yourself, but you also sometimes do have to look on the outside as well. It gives this is very important for businesses. A lot of businesses have closed, like Sears, Kmart, Burlington, Forever 21 is declaring bankruptcy, and a lot of this is because when they get really big, there's no one else to compare themselves to, and they kind of like get stuck in their mindset. So things can change, like internet commerce, or they don't update themselves. So they kind of only keep on comparing themselves to themselves, that they forget that you still need to be seeing increase of earnings and money flowing in. And when you see negatives, like let's say her earnings decreased by 100% instead of increased, that would mean her money went down, and that's a big sign. Whenever a business is losing money, it usually means they will have to cut costs somehow. Employees will have to be let go. That's usually, some businesses try to wait a little bit before doing that. Some of you might have experienced that as well. They also eliminate overtime to reduce expenses. So that is a major red flag. If you're working somewhere and you start seeing decrease instead of seeing like an increase of money coming in, be aware and just keep in mind. And that's another reason why you're taking the high set class, to open the doors to more higher earning positions. So I'll go ahead and erase that and finish my rant. All right. So let's go ahead and define percent of change in English terms. Percent of change. So that compares a new value or new number, which either shows an increase or decrease to the original number. Original number. So with change, it's implied that there's a transformation that goes on. It could be a good change or it could be a bad change. Oh, and just to be extra wordy and more specific to the original number, the original was what we started off, and the new one would be the one that came after the transformation. Again, I'm just being very mindful of ESL students here. Also, when you're using a lot of terminology within a definition, and a lot of it is the same words. It's very confusing. So let's go ahead and write it out as a formula. So we have the number right here, and then there's a change. This is a new number. So mathematically, if you want to like see it in perspective, like whether it's an increase or decrease, let's put that I have the number 10. If it was an increase, if I'm increasing the original number, the new number is going to have to be bigger. Let's say 15. It's an increase of 5. Or adding 5. So let's say I was going to decrease instead, which is minus 5. Well, I would subtract 5 from the original, so I know that the new value is going to be smaller than what I started out with. 5. Another great way to see it conceptually. I know it sometimes gets a little boring when I like explain it, but I'm just doing this for like all of our different learners. If this was one-on-one, it might sometimes be a little easier for you to tell me like, all right, miss, got it, let's move on. I know I talk a lot about pizza, but let's say we have a pizza here with like 10 slices. Let's assume they're equal. Let's say someone else goes at a party, there's a pizza, and someone brings another pizza, but like only like half of the pizza. Some of you might be wondering, why is there only half of a pizza? You can buy half of a pizza. Oh my. Okay, so I start off with 10 slices of pizza. Someone else brought 5 other slices. I ended up with 15 slices. So I have an increase in my total amount of pizza slices. That was a change. Now let's say I go through a different kind of change, where my pizza slices are going to decrease. Let's say I ate 5 of them. I was really hungry. I'm only going to be left with 5 slices. Not this same 5. It just happened to be 5 over here. Because 10 minus 5 is a 5. not necessarily the same 5 being used here. Okay. Let's go ahead and do another example. Maybe one of these days, I'll go ahead and bring a pizza for real and use it in class. But I don't know if it might be too cruel if I have a warm pizza in front of me and you're not close to it. Maybe if we can meet all together in person, then we could have a pizza party in class. So now we're going to be talking about raises. This is very important. If you're in a job that doesn't like offer options for raises or increases your wage because of increased because of inflation or increased cost of living, it is a big red flag in a position, unless like you're being paid very well. It's also very important to notice if you're not making a raise compared to other people, it might mean that you're not meeting certain deadlines, or it could also be a sign of discrimination. So the math does not lie. Let's go ahead and see this word problem talking about someone's raise. So let's say before her raise, Jackie earned $10.50 an hour. Now she earns $11.34 an hour. Hey, not bad for Jackie. What percent raise did her boss give her? Alright, so it might have just been, let's see, it wasn't even $1 more, her raise on the hourly rate, but because it's per hour, and let's say like she works like 40 hours a week, and then she works 4 weeks out of a month, and then she works 12 months out of the year, that really adds up over time. This is why people who are denied raises at companies, when they've been there for a while, they will go ahead and either request it formally, or they'll go ahead and leave to another company that can afford to give them or values them for their work and experience. So how do we calculate the raise? So we actually need to find out what was the increase. Remember how we talked about original, the change, and the new? In this case, the original was $11.34 an hour. I'm sorry, $10.50 an hour. We don't know the change. All we know is that after the change, her new value, her new hourly rate was $11.34 an hour. Okay, what percent raise? Okay, we need to calculate the percent raise, and we also need to find out the change. This is a multi-step problem. We need to find something else before we get to the final answer that is required by this question. It is also a big problem if you're really pressed for time, or if you're really anxious. I know math just makes people feel very worried. I actually had a little flashback of like taking math when I was in middle school, and the fear that you might feel you might get very anxious, and whatever you solve for this value or change instead of what they're asking for in the problem, that might be one of the answer choices, and you might see and like, all right, I'm gonna circle it and move on. No, you worked so hard, already halfway the problem. Go ahead and finish the problem and answer the right question. And you don't want to get it wrong when you were on the right track. Okay, so let's see. What percent raise? Subtract. Okay, so we're gonna need to find the change. So we know here it was an increase, right? The change was an increase. So, beauty of math. Everything that is done can be undone. Or most of the time. That's more getting into like crazy imaginary numbers, which you might argue don't exist. That's later. Everything that is done can be undone. So here we're adding, right? How do we undo that? We can subtract. So we're going to subtract these two values from each other and see what to isolate the change. It's like if I take a photo where I'm holding the cat. Where I'm holding the cat, and then it's just a photo of me. What is the change? You're gonna remove me from the new photo with the one with the cat, and you'll just end up with a cat. Maybe it would make a much funner teacher than me. Okay, cat aside. Let's go ahead and subtract. So we'll get 1134 minus 50 an hour. So that ends up being 0.84 per hour. Okay. So the increase was 0.84 per hour. This is not bad. 0.84 per hour as a raise. It could have been her annual raise. It could have been a quarterly raise, biannual. It depends. That's also something you want to put into perspective. Now, she was working there 30 years and took a bunch of responsibilities, and she only got less than $1 raise. Yeah, Jackie should probably be looking for a new job. But that aside, we're trying to find out what is the percent raise she got now. 0.84 per hour. Okay, so this is not our final answer, but we do need this value. So I'm just gonna go ahead and circle it just to know it's important. Draw emphasis to it. Okay, so now we're gonna divide it by the original because we want to find out what was the raise. So we have the raise, the actual raise, and we want to know from the original. So what we're gonna do here, kind of running out of room here, is we're gonna divide the change, whatever change it is, by the original. So my change, oh goodness, I forgot the dollars. And divide that by 10.50 per hour. Okay, so the change and then the original. Okay, because we're still talking about change. We don't necessarily are gonna need the new number for the calculation. So let's say that we get to a problem here, but here they tell me what is the actual change. They don't tell me what's the new value. I don't need to worry about calculating the new value if they're still talking about the percent raise, because the formula just needs change and original. It doesn't need the new. So we don't need that information unless something else is unknown, and then we gotta like turn it into a two-step problem to calculate things. So we simplify this, it becomes that, and if now that is with decimal. Let's turn this into a percent. So when you want to turn anything into percent, you gotta move it. I'm sorry, you want to turn a value that is only a decimal and no percent in it already. You're gonna move the decimal places 2 places to the right. And we're gonna end up with 8%. 8% increase, not bad, not bad. Congratulations, Jackie. So you could say Jackie's hourly wage increased by 8%. That is not bad. Even a 1% increase would end up to a different value over her lifetime. So we actually have another question that I can do on percent of change, but for the sake of like driving the point home about raises, let's see what is the difference $0.84 an hour makes in your annual salary. So I'm gonna go ahead and erase this. We're done with the problem. The answer is 8%. Final answer. So she had, so the difference is per hour, right? So we assume that she works 40 hours per week, and she works 4 weeks a month, and then 12 months a year. Or if you're really savvy, you already know that there's 52 weeks in a year. So I could just go ahead and multiply all of this together. Hours gonna be canceled out, and the weeks are gonna get canceled out. And you're like, okay, but it's like, why is it like that? Denominator and numerator, the unit's gonna cancel out. The denominator and numerator, it's gonna cancel out. It doesn't matter if it's like, I could have written like the week and the year up here. It doesn't have to like be in order. It's just that I just so happen to have them in order, and it makes it so much easier when going like just following the next increment instead of like jumping around like this. Going in a very step by step is much easier and less likely for you to miss a step. Okay, so if I go ahead and multiply this, had she not gotten the raise, or because of the raise, she's now gonna make this much more per year. Excuse me. 0.84, she works 40 hours a week. Those are 52. Wow. Okay. Don't do the math. Guess. Guess first before I write it down. Do you think it's $400? Do you think it's $700? $1,000? $2,000? $3,000. What do you think? Okay, here's the answer. The answer. Don't actually guess on the exam. It's just wanting to see just how big of a revelation this is. Wow. Per year. Because of that raise per hour, she's now going to be making an extra $1,700. We're talking about money. $1,747.20 per year. But if she was really clever and is already used to living on her previous wage, she's not gonna expand her lifestyle. She's gonna go ahead and just put up the rest away for savings, and at the end of the year, she has an extra $1,747.20 to use, like if she wants to pay some bills or something. So she has this much extra money. So this is why it's very important to fight, not fight, but ask for raises, and whenever your evaluation comes up in your job, see if you can go ahead and get a raise, or maybe get an extra certification, or if you're very close to getting a degree, ask what is the next level or what is required so you can get a raise. This is very, very important. I'm gonna go ahead and erase. This was really fun. I really love teaching, especially when it's relevant, in order to give you power, because knowledge is power. Next, now we're going to be talking about sales and clearance. We're going to find out if an item truly is on sale. Remember, I mentioned that there was a store I went to where the original price was $400 and there was only a 20-cent discount. 20 cents! Not even a full dollar discount, and they put it on the clearance rack. Why bother? So here we have a pair of leather gloves. Let's just say they're just a pair of handmade gloves instead. I don't want the leather or arguments like that to distract from the math content of this video. A pair of handmade gloves is on sale for $90. 3 days ago, the jacket was on sale for $120. By what percent? Was the price of the jacket I go to a store and they have like these beautiful handmade gloves. They're maybe made of like an organic cotton or something that I could say was worth the $90. Let's say there's a discrepancy here. I wrote gloves here and I wrote jacket over here. If you see that on a question, it might be a pilot question, meaning it will not count. And following the rules of English with plural, gloves is plural, so I have to change was into were. I used to be an English teacher too. So, going back, a pair of handmade gloves. They were on sale for $90. Let's say I went to the store 3 days before and I had noticed they were $120. So, okay, I didn't think that they were worth buying because $120 was outside my budget. Now I'm seeing them cheaper for $90. Here it's time for me to reconsider, are these gloves still worth it? For some people they'll say, oh no, it doesn't matter. But let's say that you have someone who has like extra spending cash, or maybe these are some special gloves that help for arthritis, and you think this would be a great gift for your grandma or grandpa. And then it's starting to make you wonder, okay, so like how much was the percent reduced? Like, was it a drastic difference this time around or not? Let's see. So following our same rule, our same formula, let's use a different color, is that we're going to get the change and divide by the original. So even though here in this point we're talking about reduced and the other one was talking about a paid raise, which implies an increase, it still follows the change. Increase or decrease, it's both a change. So in order to find the percent difference, or the percent of change, really, you get the change and you divide it by the original. Okay, so we know the change is not mentioned here, but we can go ahead and calculate that. This is going to be a two-step problem. So, change is the difference between the new number and the original number. Don't worry if you get a negative number here, because after all, this is a decrease. We're going to get a $30 difference. So we know, because there's $30 and it's negative, you don't actually pay with negative money, but we know that there's been a discount. So we know it's a discount. Let's go ahead and write this down so we don't panic or confuse that for a stray mark. It's been a few times when I wasn't careful and there was like a little like stray mark on my paper, or I was writing real fast and ink was flying back when I used to use gel pens, and I would mistake a scratch mark for a negative, or there was supposed to be a negative and I didn't use it. So just be very mindful in order to like kind of be extra smart. You can go ahead and just label it discount. So the change was a discount. So here we have the change. So we know it was a $30 change. we know that the original was $120. So, hey, look, there's zeros on the top and there's zeros on the bottom. Go ahead and simplify that. Much easier to mentally see this as 3 over 12. Oh, 3 over 12. 3 fits 4 times in 12. Great. 1 over 4. Oh, that is 25%. That is the difference, the 25% difference. You might ask, well, why isn't the answer negative 25%? Because it was like gonna be like a negative like this. Yes, that could be the change. If the question is asking what was the change, then it can go ahead and ask, well, there's been a negative 25% difference. But here, I'm already implying that the answer is gonna be negative. So here, I'm just focusing on the actual value, not necessarily if it was negative or positive. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your multiple choice selections. Okay. Oh, we finished the lesson on ratio, proportions, and percent. Oh, congratulations, everyone. I know that this is sometimes a big hurdle of ratio and proportions, and I hope that these different lessons made it much easier to understand. But don't worry, we can always come back to this. In fact, if you're not like 100% on these sections, we're gonna be reviewing them. Might be a little bit more passively than what we were right now, but like in the geometry section, we might have to use these concepts later on. So let's say that you're like at 80%, it's okay. We'll keep on mastering these different concepts throughout the class, and then at the end of the class, I'll go ahead and perform an evaluation, see where everyone is, if there's any like gaps in knowledge. I won't necessarily say weaknesses, because we can always go ahead and like fill in the gaps, and like then we can find out, hey, you're ready to take the exam, you're on the way to getting your high school diploma. Okay, so that is it for tonight, everyone. Have a great evening. I'll see you all tomorrow.